Hello everybody and welcome back to the Fortress of Solitude. Today we're going to be checking out Darth Vader issue 40 by Greg Pak and Raphael Ienco. Vader finally returns to confront the Emperor on Coruscant and arrives on the planet in quite grand fashion, crashing his fighter into Palpatine's palace before deciding it's time he tests his own master, using his reacquired force powers to battle Palpatine. What I found interesting about this confrontation is that Palpatine is surprised that Vader has his powers back, seeing as other force sensitive beings like Sly Moore are still affected by the force wave that is still happening throughout the galaxy. This is also really quite a cool little bit of character piece for Palpatine, since it just shows that he's just so arrogant and cocky of himself that, like, of course Vader would never be able to get his powers back because he's weak and he can't defeat me. And I like that idea that Palpatine was really shocked by the fact that his apprentice was able to get his powers back, and in such a quick succession as well. Vader's powers allow him to combat Palpatine's forces and hold his master at bay, but unfortunately for Vader, his flight is cut short as the Scourge piggybacked on Vader's shuttle to Coruscant, unleashing itself on the city planet, overtaking many of the droids in the palace, and in a giant flood of violence and death, it causes Palpatine and Vader to put their battle on hold for the time being and join forces once again to defeat the Scourge. I really liked how quick Palpatine was to act in this. Like, he recognizes the threat these droids pose, even though he'll kind of downplay it a little bit in front of certain people. I like that he is very much afraid of this and afraid of what they could do to his rule, and I like that he has contingencies in place. And I'm sure there were contingencies for other things, but I like that he has this contingency where he will just blow up a huge part of the planet to make sure that the droids don't get out of there, and it's done in grand fashion as well. It just explodes half of the city, or it's never really clear exactly what it explodes, but I'm guessing it is a huge sect of the city that just somehow explodes with his command. And I'm intrigued to see what exactly that was for, whether that was for something maybe to do with like Operation Cinder, where it's like if the Emperor's rule was in question, he would just detonate parts of the city or parts of the planet to sort of quell insurrection, which is again very Palpatine thing, and I like that we get to see a little bit more of that sort of stuff in this issue. Vader, having been bested by his master, is left with one final choice, which is to join with the Scourge, which is exactly how this book ends off, with Vader actually being infected by the final Scourge droid left alive, but it's implied that he is still in some sort of control, unlike the other cyborgs who were taken by the Scourge wholesale. And I have to think it was maybe something to do with the Force, and maybe the Force is sort of holding back the Scourge infection just enough so that Vader still has enough agency to himself. And I'm intrigued to see what Vader having two minds in his head will actually do to him. It's very intriguing. The one thing I don't really understand is how this makes Vader strong enough to take on the Emperor and beat him, since that's the whole Scourge's thing, is that if Vader allows him into his mind, he'll be able to best the Emperor. And again, this could just be the Scourge sort of tricking Vader and sort of manipulating him a little bit, but I just failed to see how having a droid in your head is going to allow you to beat the Emperor with all his force powers and everything. It's very strange, and I'm intrigued to see how Greg Pak is going to round that circle when it comes to it, and I'm sure it's probably going to be the next issue, since the next Darth Vader book is the final tie-in to the Dark Droids series, so it has to end here. Raphael Ienco's art again continues to be just fantastic for this book. I love how grand he makes everything feel, especially now that we're on Coruscant. I love all of the stuff with the Coruscant in the background. You see all like the traffic ways and landing platforms, and a scale of the explosion that Palpatine sets off as well. It's like this huge, almost nuclear explosion that he sets off in the background of their fight to end the Scourge threat before it can spread out throughout Coruscant, and just looks fantastic. And the fight stuff is really quite great. You get force powers fighting, you got dark troopers coming back to life through the Scourge. It's all great stuff, and Ienco does just fantastic work and makes it all just look effortless. Darth Vader issue 40 was another fantastic tie-in to the Dark Droids series. Between this and the Dr. Aphra book, it definitely feels like one of the more stronger tie-ins to the series, as there's an actual story that's embedded with these characters and it's informing on their character arcs and vice versa as well. I'm intrigued to see a possessed possessed Vader now. At the end of the issue, he was possessed by the Scourge, and I'm intrigued to see what that's going to mean for Vader going forward in the book as we itch closer to the end of the Dark Droids event. I'm going to give this issue a 8.5 out of 10.